Hello everyone, and welcome to Orensha Tech's PowerShell series. Today we're going to be taking you through the first part of this series, installing PowerShell 7, where we will also be showing you how to install Visual Studio Code, and we're going to show you how to install both of these tools on Windows, Mac OS, and Linux Ubuntu. What is PowerShell? PowerShell is a universal shell for product administration, and the intention by the designers was to create a shell that could accomplish 100% of product administration without having to use the GUI. Some of the major adopters of this have been Endpoint Management, Exchange, SharePoint, Microsoft 365, Azure, AWS, and VMware. PowerShell will no doubt give you the edge and make you a much more valuable IT professional when you are competing for jobs against other administrators and IT professionals. You'll be able to automate tasks, perform batch operations quicker than you can through the GUI, and it is multi-platform, as we've seen. Who should learn PowerShell? Administrators and pretty much all IT professionals who are or are looking to become system administrators should learn PowerShell because of how versatile it is and how many different products have adopted PowerShell and created modules that allow you to manage their systems through this supremely awesome shell. You will boost your game by improved command line skills. You'll be able to combine commands and tools into more complex processes, packaged for less experienced administrators, and you'll be able to develop reusable tools and applications. And on top of that, you're going to become awesome at scripting, and pretty much anything will be able to be accomplished with ease through PowerShell. Here's some of the terminology that you'll hear and is good to understand when using PowerShell. PowerShell usually refers to PowerShell 7, which is the cross-platform PowerShell application. Shell refers to any app that accepts text-based commands such as bash, fish, or PowerShell. Terminal is an app that runs a shell within it to interact in a visual way. And Windows PowerShell is PowerShell 5.1 that comes pre-installed on Windows 10 and 11. So let's get ready and install PowerShell 7 and Visual Studio Code. And again, we're going to take you through PowerShell 7 Windows, Ubuntu, and macOS. Go ahead and look for those timestamps if you want to jump to any one of those. And also Visual Studio Code. We're going to take you through how to install on all three of those systems. All the links are in the description. Okay. So first up is Windows PowerShell 7. You can get this link here in the description. Go into GitHub for PowerShell. I'm going to scroll down here. And we're going to grab the Windows 64 downloads stable MSI. Go ahead and just click the link there to download. Open that up, run, and just go through the basic options here for PowerShell 7. And we're gonna launch this right away. Okay, so here's PowerShell 7, and you can tell the difference between this and the pre-installed Windows PowerShell by the suffix here, or prefix, excuse me. And then you can see here the PowerShell 7, and this is the one you're gonna wanna be using for the most part all the time. And some of the first things you're going to want to do is come and edit the settings on here. So if we go here and pull up the settings, we're gonna go through and change some of these. You can change the appearance, always on top mode, which is a pretty nice feature. We got the color schemes. And here we're gonna increase the font size just a little bit to make it easy to see certain things like the apostrophe and the backtick. Okay, let's move on to macOS. Okay, we're gonna grab ourselves a new window of terminal. And then we're going to run the command. You can get this in the description. And then something to be aware of is that you just need to have a macOS version newer than Mojave, which I do not. So I'm not going to be able to show you what PowerShell looks like here, but essentially you'd run the pwsh and it would pull up the PowerShell app for you within the terminal. All right, we're going to move on to Linux. This is Linux Ubuntu. You can get a full listing of how to install PowerShell 7 on all the distros, and I'll drop that link in the description. But I'm going to show you on specifically Ubuntu 20.04. Okay. And again, you can get this in the description. Get your password. We already have that installed. So now we should be able to just use our pwsh and get right into PowerShell 7. Right within the terminal, you can get to your PowerShell 7 application. Okay, let's move on to Visual Studio Code, and we'll hop back to Windows. Okay, and we'll go to our download link here, and we're going to grab our Windows, user installer, we can open that up, run that, go right through with the default settings. We'll launch that. Okay. And some of the things to be aware of here, just a quick overview before we go to the other applications. We've got our Explorer, and then here we have our extensions, and we can actually get an extension specifically for PowerShell. Make sure it's the Microsoft one, grab that. I've already got it installed, but this is where you come to install it. All right, and then let's hop back to macOS, and I'll show you how to install Visual Studio Code. And we can do that right through the terminal here. You can get that command in the description. Okay. Let's grab this one as well. And then also be aware, we need version newer than in High Sierra. So I've got an older version of Mac, but this is how you would do it if you have those newer versions of Mac. And then going back over to our Linux, we'll install Visual Studio Code. We're going to want to clear out of this. Get a new terminal. Okay, then we just run code here. Now we'll open up Visual Studio Code. And we're going to go back to Windows just to check out a few of the features there in Visual Studio Code. And the first thing we're going to do here is check out some of the customizations that we can do. We're going to go to File, Preferences, and then to Settings. And we're going to want to get tab completion here. Turn that on. Next, we're going to look up the theme you can look up here, the color theme. You can go through and choose from a variance of options. You can poke around and pick something that you like. I really like this Abyss. It's nice on my eyes. Get familiar, poke around, but the big thing you're going to want to get is the PowerShell extension. Make sure that that's installed, and you can come in here, new file, PowerShell, and it's automatically going to start recognizing PowerShell commands for you. And the other thing we're going to want to look at is some of the tab completion features now that we have that turned on. So we got Get P. We can use the tab button to filter through all the options there. And the other awesome feature inside of Visual Studio Code is the IntelliSense feature. We can use this, and it's going to show us here in this pop-up box all the different options we have. So as we go through this series and learn more about PowerShell, this is going to be a great tool to interact with PowerShell. And we can actually interact with PowerShell right through Visual Studio Code. Right down here, we have this terminal option, and you can see it is PowerShell, a copy of PowerShell right inside of Visual Studio Code. So we can run this, and that's going to get all my processes, so we can work with PowerShell without having to open up any other windows. We can write scripts. We have the IntelliSense, we have tab completion. This is a great all-around text editing tool that integrates right into PowerShell. And the last thing that we're going to want to make sure we can do is we're going to want to make sure that we can see the difference between a few different things. We have the single quote and the backtick, and those look just a little too similar for me. So we're going to come in here, go to our preferences, our settings, come to our text editor, go to our fonts, and let's just boost this up a little bit more, even up to 18, just to make a difference. And we're going to use, you see this, and that should give us a much better difference between these two options. And even all of our braces, we're going to want to be able to tell the difference between all of them easily, just to make sure when we're creating scripts, when we're writing code, we can tell the difference between all of the different characters. Okay. Watch out for our next video, part 2, and we're going to go through the help system, which is going to empower you to be the expert on PowerShell and not rely on anyone else, not even Google, to learn how to use any module or command. So watch out for that video and keep watching. Thank you.